is only 4 words. This one's for John.
This one's for Pat.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Friday night edition of NFL with Kyle. I hope you guys had a good 4th of July. Hope you guys were safe. If you're lucky, you got a 4-day weekend. I was not so lucky, but since everyone else was at work, it was actually a pretty easy day. It felt like I was working on a Saturday, to be honest. There's no cars on the road. I'm in a 55 and up community, so I think the 4th of July festivities tuckered everyone out. I didn't see anybody walking around in the hallways. But hopefully you guys had a good 4th, and I've been kind of under the weather a little bit, so it hasn't gotten bad. I've been taking a lot of vitamin C and zinc, staying hydrated, but it is like a congestion type thing. So if I run out of breath, a little easier than usual, that's all that is I got some phlegm in my chest, making it hard to breathe. All right. So I'm actually really excited about this because I was talking to somebody I interviewed. When I was young, I fell in love with players. I mean, I was always a Broncos fan, but it was weird. Like, I liked players, not as much as I liked the Broncos, but a lot. And I wore other players' jerseys, which I couldn't really fathom doing that unless somebody gifted me a jersey or there was some kind of sentimental meaning behind it. Because as a Broncos fan, I just wouldn't wear another team's jersey. But when I was a kid, I fell in love with the players, and playing Madden had a lot to do with that because you really get to know the teams and all the players when you play the game. But I remember I had an Edwin James jersey. I had a Manning jersey. Weirdly enough, 2 Colts. I had a Steve McNair jersey. I just like Steve McNair. And I also realized that I also liked the jersey. Like, I liked exploring other teams' jerseys and their color patterns. And it wasn't necessarily such a competitive thing yet when I was 10, 11 years old. So where I don't know where that organically just stopped happening. There's a few jerseys I will still wear. But it's weird. Like, in the NBA, I don't really have that team that I follow like the Broncos. So I'll wear a Giannis jersey because I was born in Milwaukee. I'll wear a D Wade jersey because I lived in Miami for 10 years and been to a ton of Heat games. I'll wear a Nuggets jersey because I like the Nuggets. But because I like the Broncos so much, it I don't know. It's like I can't do that in the NFL. So we're going to be looking at units today. And units, I mean, from the offensive line to the secondary to the receiving corps, I mean, each unit plays a vital role in determining a team's success. Where are they going to have to overcome? What area of the game are they going to dominate? And with the season right around the corner, this is the last full month of no football. So just give yourselves a round of applause for making it through. But with the season right around the corner, it's time to take a look at the best units in the NFL. And we talked a little bit about the offensive line on our last episode, where the Lions took the top spot, led by Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow. So we won't get into that a bunch, but I'm going to start in a different direction with the receiving core. Okay. Now, there's a lot of teams that come to mind. Okay. First off, you got to give the Bears credit. They got Keenan Allen, they got Rue Odunze, they still have DJ Moore, who can have a top 5 season, be a top 5 receiver. I mean, that guy's been so consistent for Carolina. And then even last year with Justin Fields being hurt, like he still was exactly what he was in Carolina, just more of the same. So you got to really give him his flowers, because I can't imagine what he would look like with competent quarterback play, which apparently is what the Bears have now. That's what we've been told. So the Bears come to mind right away. The Houston Texans, as you guys know, I'm really high in the Houston Texans. Okay. I think that the Texans are probably the only team that can go toe to toe with the Bears. I'm trying to think of some other, of course, the 49ers, considering that everything will work out with Brandon Ayuk, with Deebo Samuel. I mean, George Kittle. I don't know if we're including tight ends in this, but let's just do it, because really some of these tight ends are very involved in the receiving game. But these are the teams that come to mind right away. I think you got to get the Bengals up there with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, which is funny because we're just 1 year removed from T. Higgins not having a monster season. And it's almost like you forgot about the Bengals. If I would have asked this question before last year started, give me the teams with the best wide receiver core, Bengals come out immediately. And T. Higgins has shown us more than not, he is a very effective, efficient receiver that's going to get you at least probably 1,200 yards with upside towards 1,500. I mean, the guy is just a baller. I don't know exactly what happened last season, and there's been contract disputes. And T. Higgins, is he going to play under a tag, or does he need a new deal? And you take all that and mix it all together, and we kind of forget about the Bengals. But let's remember that if Joe Burrow comes out and he's healthy and he's Joe Burrow, you're probably going to get a better version of T. Higgins. And a better version of T. Higgins is going to quickly remind all of us how good Jamar Chase is. And a good T. Higgins and Jamar Chase is going to be one of the best in the league. So I don't know if the Bengals should be too far down the list just because of, one faulty season where they didn't even have their star quarterback. But T. Higgins' struggles seem to be almost more than just Joe Burrow. But I still have faith that he can get back to form. And Bill, I got excited. What's up, Bill? The Dolphins. And yeah, the Rams and the Vikings, they all seem like good squad. No, you're right. I'm glad you brought it up, because I think the Rams have to be, they might be above the Bengals right now. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, just them two. That's going to get them pretty high on the list. And then the Vikings, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. Yeah, no, those are teams I'm embarrassed I didn't even think about them, because you're right. All right, well, let's see. According to PFF, let's see how they rank them, okay? So I gave you my honest opinion before I take a dive into this article. And let me know who you think number one is in the chat. Who do you think? The writer of this was Trevor Sikkema. So if you guys are curious to know the writer, I'm gonna put his name here. He comes on NFL Network all the time. Rich Eisen, all of that, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so this is according to him, and then I'll tell you if I agree with it or not. Okay, number one, according to Trevor Sikkema, is not the Houston Texans, and it's not the Bears, who really felt like 1A and 1B. It's the San Francisco 49ers. And, I mean, I get it, but really? San Francisco over the Texans. Now, let's hear what he has to say. No pass catching unit can stack up with the 49ers receiving talent. No pass catching unit can stack up with the 49ers. What about the Texans? Not only do they have wide receiver Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, both top 10 players in PFF's receiver rankings heading into the season, but they also have George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey to lean on in the passing game. Whoa. Call me crazy, but if you're judging a receiving group, you can't throw in the running back. That's bonkers. Like, even if it is true that Christian McCaffrey is going to have, 10 receiving touchdowns and he's going to play a huge role, we're not judging who will have the best passing game. I mean, according to him, we're judging who has the best receiving core. I don't even include tight ends. Like, when I said fine, we'll include tight end, like, I was going against the grain there, personally, because if I'm judging a receiving core, you have to play receiver, and that's it. That's all I'm judging. So I think, I'm glad that this came out in the very beginning, because I need to know his mentality as the writer of this article. But I don't know if that's how I would go about it. But he said San Francisco easily earned the best team's receiving grade in 2023 at 91.0. No other club eclipsed 86. Throw in Jawan Jennings and rookie Ricky Pearsall, and it feels like the 49ers are stoked with an embarrassment of receiving riches. All right, so we got a little bit different opinions so far. And then coming in at number 2, this is one of the teams that Bill mentioned. That little surprising that they would be this high. The Miami Dolphins at number 2. And let me just do something before I do this. Here we go. Let me copy. Just so if people just randomly click on it, they know what we're talking about. I think that's fair. Bear with me. I'm almost done. Copy. Nope. All right, here we go. All right. 2024 NFL receiving corps ranking core ranking. Okay. Number 2, the Miami Dolphins. Once again, I don't know what kind of pot the Trevor is smoking, but we'll get to it. The Dolphins rank second to the 49ers in team receiving grade. I mean, it's almost like he's judging which teams will have the best passing offense, right? They're going off efficiency last year. I guess to me, we were just going to talk about receivers and that's it. But you see him alluding to this team receiving grade twice in the first 2. Tyreek and Jalen Waddle make up a big piece of that pie, and Hill earning the top receiving grade in the league last year, 94.0. There we go again. And Waddle recording an elite 90.6 mark. Okay. This is definitely, he's ranking the most efficient offenses. The most efficient passing offenses. To me, that's what Trevor is writing about. Jonnu Smith doesn't move the needle a ton in the receiving game at tight end, but running back Devon Achane earned a 77.1 receiving grade. Okay. I'm going to have to just accept that we're on 2 different roads, and I'm going to have to join his road because he can't join mine. He's not here. Actually, I won't join him. I'll just tell you them and I'll tell you mine. Okay, first off, number 1, I'm going with the Houston Texans. Okay. Tank Dell is a bona fide star before he broke his leg. Nico Collins looked like he could be a top 5 receiver in the NFL. All he did was blow past everybody. The Cleveland Browns did not have a bad defense. Nico Collins went out there without a Tank Dell as the team's target receiver, if he had to double cover anyone, it was Nico Collins, and they could not cover him. He showed us in that game that he has the potential to be a superstar in the league, and that he was drafted way too low, right? Or high, depending on how you look at it. I'm saying he should have been drafted closer to round 2 than round 3. And you bring in arguably the best wide receiver in football for the past 5 years in Stefon Diggs. It's not even close. Like, if we're comparing what group of wide receivers, if you were building a superstar team and you had to pick a team and their receivers are your receivers, how are you picking anyone other than the Houston Texans? You either don't think Tank Dell is good, which means you didn't watch football last year, or you don't think Nico Collins is good, in which case you also didn't watch football last year. And Stefon Diggs, there's no help for you if you can't buy into that. So, yeah, the 49ers, obviously the author talking about George Kittle and CMC, just purely going off wide receivers, I got the Houston Texans. And then at number 2, I think it's the Chicago Bears. I really do. First off, I know that the Jets have a pretty good situation with Garrett Wilson, and they bring in Mike Williams. But Mike Williams was always the 2 to Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen was always the best wide receiver on that team. So you bring in Keenan Allen. They draft Rome Odunze, who some people said Malik Neighbors has the most upside of any wide receiver in the draft. But Rome Odunze is the safest wide receiver, and he offers versatility in ways that the other receivers didn't. Meaning he can go into any system, play any role. You need him to block, be a vertical threat. You need him to be a slot. You can make him do anything, and it's going to work out. So for that reason, I think this works out really great because, of course, DJ Moore is your number 1 receiver. So you bring in Keenan Allen, and you're hoping, okay, hopefully he can stay at that number 2 level. They don't need him to be a number 1 like they did in LA. Now he can really kind of settle into the T. Higgins number 2, a number 2 that could be a number 1. And then you draft your number 3 receiver as one of the best receivers in this entire draft class. If you look at wide receivers drafted in the top 10 in the past 10 years, you don't really miss on those, right? Those have all panned out, right? The NFL has its positions that are entirely too difficult for even millionaires to figure out. Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, for example. But the position cornerback, safety, wide receiver, and running back, rarely are those wrong when they're drafted that high. Let me show you an example. I'm going to pull up the 2023 draft, okay? And the first overall pick was a quarterback, which is not, right? That was not one of my examples, okay? It was Bryce Young. Quarterbacks are excluded from this. Like I said, wide receivers, running backs, cornerbacks, DBs, safeties. So in edge rushers, although they can be a little flaky. But let's just look at the top 10. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, throw him off. Will Anderson Jr., all right, defensive rookie of the year. Devin Witherspoon was drafted 5th to Seattle, star. Okay, Paris Johnson, offensive lineman. Those are not guaranteed home runs. A Giants fan would know that. So, yeah, the quarterback position, the offensive line position can be a little weird. Tyree Wilson, defensive end. Well, the Raiders always draft the wrong guy, so that's almost not a great. Bijan Robinson, he's a top 5 running back in the NFL right now. Jalen Carter at 9. And then Darnell Wright, a wide. So let's look at the skill positions. Bijan Robinson, Devin Witherspoon. Okay. Yeah, those 2 worked out. Okay. You go to 2022. All right. Top 10 pick that's not a quarterback. Okay. Or a defensive end. Not to say those aren't skill positions, but you know what I mean when I say skill position. So here we go. Number 3 overall, Derek Stingley Jr., the best corner in the draft. It worked. Let's see. Wide receiver selected 8th overall, Drake London, who is insanely good. Wait till you see what they've had all along in Atlanta this year with Kirk Cousins. Okay. And then there was a couple other wide receivers picked at 10 and 11. You probably don't know who they are. Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. Okay. When it comes to top 10 draft picks, if you're getting a wide receiver, you're right. You're right. All right. And if you go to 2021, of course, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance. But then you go number 5 overall, and Jamar Chase was drafted. Okay. Then at 6 overall, Jalen Waddle was drafted. Then Penei Sewell, then J.C. Horn, then Patrick Surtain, and then Devontae Smith. So I think that is the perfect draft to just close this case. If you're drafting a skill position and you're in the top 10, you got a 99% chance of being right. So Rome Odunze, let's say that he does come in and give you Jamar Chase production. Oh, Jalen Waddle production. Let's say Devontae Smith production, because that's exactly where he was drafted. And the reason I bring this up is because it's easy to sit here and say, well, that's a big what if. My attempt here is to make the case that it is not a big if, that it's almost what we should come to expect. And if that's the case, let's take that little bit of perspective and let's re-ask the question. Okay? Let's take a look at Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, and DJ Moore, and you tell me that that's not the second best wide receiver group. I mean, you have everything. You have somebody in their prime, you have somebody a little bit past their prime, and you have a rookie. You have a dominating player at all 3 levels. So yeah, the Bears, I would even do it like Texans 1A, Bears probably 1B. Bill said, agreed, running back shouldn't be included. Tight ends, I can see because Gronk and Kelsey are big targets. Oh, okay. Thank you. Joe on Hard Knocks Tuesday, please, Malik Neighbors, be there at 6 so the Giants got the guy they wanted. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. So that's always a good feeling to know that you didn't settle, that was the target. Only brought it up because you mentioned him. LOL, a Giants fan definitely knows O-line drafting high is a crapshoot. Sorry, I didn't mean to rub dirt on it. Okay. So, all right, we'll circle back. I gave you my 1A, 1B. I gave you Trevor's 1 and 2. Let's take a look at number 3. All right, at number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, now I might be able to get behind this one. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith form one of the top wide receiver duos in the league. Over the past 2 years, Brown has earned an elite 91.2 receiving grade, and Smith has earned an 81.7. There he goes again with these grades. He goes on to talk about Dallas Goedert is a factor with a 78.2 receiving grade and 6 touchdowns since 2022. The Eagles then added Saquon Barkley this offseason, which Bill doesn't want to hear about, to round out a very strong receiving core. Okay. Like I said, totally different philosophy here, but I can see if we're just looking at offenses, like, yeah, the Eagles are loaded up to be a really powerful offense. And then here we go. So at 4 and 5, where I have 1A and 1B, Houston Texans and Chicago Bears, Trevor actually has the Chicago Bears and the Houston Texans both next to each other as well, just lower down the chart. So let me update this really quick. I got to remember to do that. All right, we'll start at number 4. He has the Chicago Bears. The Bears went from having one of the least impressive receiving corps to one of the most impressive in 2 years. It's true. At wide receiver, they boast a top trio of DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze. Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett will feature at tight end, and newly signed DeAndre Swift is a pass-catching threat. Rookie quarterback Caleb Williams will have a plethora of options in 2024. Yeah. It's also a ton of pressure on Caleb Williams. Like, it's one thing to be the guy that you're supposed to be the guy. It's another thing to be the guy on a team that has the best wide receiving group in the NFL. Like, I'm sorry, but if Daniel Jones gets drafted 6 years ago, and which he did 5 years ago, and he doesn't work out year 1, they're still going to draft Malik Neighbors to, really find out. There's no like pass for Caleb Williams. It's like, all right, you're supposed to be that guy, and we just put you on the best offense in the league. So if you're not the guy, we're really going to know. We're really going to know. And what will that do to his confidence if it gets rattled early? Because you could say, well, any young quarterback has to deal with getting rattled early. This is a unique circumstance, a specific type of rattling that can be done that's unique to Caleb Williams' situation in Chicago. So I think it's worth a conversation, not to say that, oh, I hope he doesn't work out, or it's just a conversation that is worth having. And at wide receiver, they're right. I mean, they have the top trio: DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, right there with the team that he has right after. Okay, and that team, you guessed it, is the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans come in at 5, so he does crack the top 5. Way too low, in my opinion. After trading for Stefon Diggs, the Texans leap into the top 5 for receiving corps. Diggs has long been one of the top receivers in the league, even if he had a down year. Nico Collins had a major breakout season last year. And then rookie Tank Dell looked good when healthy. The Texans are as deep as any team at wide receiver, rounding out their room with John Mitchie, Robert Woods, and Noah Brown, and more. Houston also has a good receiving options in tight end at Dalton Schultz and running back Joe Mixon. Yeah. I had a buddy when I was in the Navy, and he was a diehard Rams fan. Not Temple. It was another guy. He was a diehard Rams fan, and I remember when Robert Woods got traded, I believe it was to Tennessee, and he was like, "You don't understand." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "You don't understand how important Robert Woods was to the success of the Rams. He's a big reason we won a Super Bowl." And I was like, "Really?" I didn't know that. But, nobody knows their team like a diehard fan. So him joining this Texans team is really sneaky because he brings a lot of veteran leadership to the team. Tank Dell and Nico Collins are somewhat still young kids. And let's be real, Stefon Diggs isn't necessarily a parent going to take on a parental role for these young receivers. So I think that Robert Woods being in the room, I think it rounds out the room quite nicely. Maybe more than the Texans are getting credit for. So, and they were my number 1 before I even really considered that. So Texans coming in at number 5. And Bill, you were right. The Minnesota Vikings at number 6. Justin Jefferson is PFF's number 1 wide receiver heading into 2024, which we were going to talk about in a minute. Jordan Addison flashed in 2023 as a good wide receiver too, and TJ Hawkinson established himself as a top 5 tight end. The Vikings added Aaron Jones, Tom Grassi, to the depth chart this offseason, a productive pass catcher over the past 5 years. And yeah, I mean, the Minnesota Vikings are definitely an offense that you have to look out for. The question is, who's throwing the football, right? I mean, at least for the Bears case, they have somebody that is projected to be that guy. They have a Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, supposedly. Okay. I just have a hard time thinking that everybody could be so wrong about Caleb Williams. I think you're going to get competent quarterback play out of him, and that receiver group is just too good for him to not benefit from. But what's J.J. McCarthy going to look like? That's not necessarily the same situation as Caleb Williams. J.J. McCarthy is a little bit more of an unknown, and they're going to ask him to do a lot right away. Or they're going to give it to Sam Darnold, in which case I think this receiving group is going to benefit probably from Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold is going to benefit from his time with Kyle Shanahan, right? If you needed someone to revitalize that guy's career, you got the guy, Kyle Shanahan. So I wouldn't be surprised if J.J. McCarthy sits on the bench and Sam Darnold gets the nod week 1. But ultimately, the Minnesota Vikings might have one of those receiving core that is going to be wasted this year. And Bill said, LOL, a Giants fan definitely knows the O-line. Oh, I hit that one already. Saquon bobbling a catch led to 3 picks last year on deflections. He's not the receiving threat Trevor thinks he is. Fair point. Fair point. And then here we go at number 7. Okay, number 7. This one might be a little too high or low. You guys tell me. At number 7, we have the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions. Of course, wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown has established him as one of the league's best receivers and most reliable, earning a receiving grade, elite receiving grades in the past 2 seasons. Sam Laporta, he didn't look like a top 5 tight end. He is a top 5 tight end. And he's expected an uptick in receiving production from wide receiver Jameson Williams and running back Jahmyr Gibbs should have the Lions offense cooking once again. Yeah, Jameson Williams definitely looking to take that next step. I think he was drafted, I was just looking at it, in 2021, I believe. Was it 2021? It might have been 22. But regardless, they lose, what's his name? The freaking Josh Reynolds. They lose Josh Reynolds. I don't know if that's going to really matter because they're able to keep Raymond, Williams, and St. Brown, which is a really good group of people. And of course, Jahmyr Gibbs is an absolute monster. And David Montgomery didn't go anywhere, right? I got to check really quick. David Montgomery, where is he? Is he with the Lions this year? I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Yeah, he's with the Lions. David Montgomery, deal. What's his contract? When is his contract? Okay. So the Lions reached an agreement with Montgomery Tuesday, and they're expected to sign base salaries of $1.25 million in 2023. He was getting paid $1 million last year. Talk about getting a bang for your buck. That's got to be the most efficient $1 million back in the league. And that's why this year he'll be paid $5.25 million, and he'll be paid $5.5 million in 2025 for cap purposes. The $4.5 million signing bonus is spread evenly. So, okay, David Montgomery stays on the team for a couple more years, which is going to help the Lions tremendously. Honestly, might be a key. He might play a key role if the Lions get to the Super Bowl and end up winning one in the next 2 years. So didn't get a shout out in the article, but Based on what he's writing about, like, I'm not doing it the same way, but I would have the Lions way higher. If you're talking about just an all around like offense, who's got the best weapons, the Lions probably climb this list just because they have 2 top 10 running backs in the backfield. I mean, and then you throw in one of the league's best receivers in the slot and a top 5 tight end. And Jameson Williams, he had not a great year last year. He was 77th wide receiver grade out of 128 wide receivers. He got a 62.9. And then Raymond, he was 32nd out of 128 wide receivers. So that's pretty good. But St. Brown 4th, right? And Sam Laporta was 6th out of 72 tight ends. Yeah, this is going to be a really good team. And you really start to remember, man, there's a lot of really good teams that are going to make it really difficult. Just like Dan Campbell said, it's going to be a lot harder to get here next year. And one of those teams that's going to be better and probably playing in the playoffs is the number 8 team, the Los Angeles Rams. Puka Nacua's emergence vaults the Rams into the top 10, if nothing else, because of how effective and productive both him and Cooper Kupp have proven to be when healthy. And that's the first thing I thought when you said the Rams. I was like, yeah, I mean, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and then I couldn't think of anyone else. And I was like, who cares? I've already said enough. Nacua was a record setter last season, including the playoff game against the Lions, and Kupp won the receiving triple crown the last time he was fully healthy. The team's receiving grades outside of them are low, but those two are good enough to carry the load. I completely agree. They'll carry the boats. All right, who's going to carry the boats? Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And Matthew Stafford, right? And the running back that I'm blanking on his name, but he really emerged late last season. We were like, who is this guy? Why am I blanking on his name? Regardless, the Rams are going to be a really good team this year. And they're a really good team. I think they'll compete for the division. So take that for what it's worth. Coming in at number 9, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. And we were just talking about the Bengals, what to make of the Bengals. I'm excited to talk about the Bengals, but I got a D for the P really quick. I will be right back, but I'll leave you guys, as always, daydreaming. All right. Thank you guys for waiting patiently. And let's see these comments. He's still there. Oh, okay, David Montgomery. Okay, the Bengals. They entered last season number 1 on this list, and I was just talking about that. How you would think of the Bengals so differently if they weren't just one season removed, and it just shows how the what have you done for me lately world of sports is so true. We all have recency bias. So that just kind of drives that point home. They were number 1 on the list last year, but things took a different turn for them heading into the 2024 campaign. Jamar Chase is still a top 3 or 5 wide receiver at worst, but T. Higgins didn't have a strong season as he did the year before, and he's entering the season without a long-term deal. They also don't have Joe Mixon and Tyler Boyd. And Tyler Boyd, I consistently said he's got to be the best wide receiver 3 in the league, right? And I just felt like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, they really made it hard for people to know who Tyler Boyd was. But if you even somewhat keep up with the Bengals, you know that he's a really good player. And I do think losing Tyler Boyd is going to hurt them. I don't think that they're a better team without him. But they did draft a wide receiver. So let's see. Who did they draft? Amarius Mims, offensive tackle. I think it was the 2nd round. Defensive tackle in the 2nd round. Maybe the 3rd round. No, defensive tackle. Did they draft it? Oh, they drafted Eric All. Okay, they drafted Eric All, a really good receiving tight end. So they got a cornerback in the 5th round and a tight end. Tanner, they got another tight end. So they did draft 2 tight ends. Eric All, I don't know how high you guys have Eric All ranked in your own personal board, but look, as long as Joe Burrow is the quarterback, he's going to make it work. I mean, this isn't like the thing with the Bears where it's like, or the Vikings, can a really good receiving core elevate the level? It's the other way around. Joe Burrow is going to elevate his wide receivers, whether it's Jamar Chase or it's a new guy that we don't know, or it's Eric All. Joe Burrow is that guy. So, like I said, I do think the Bengals are worse without Tyler Boyd. But I wouldn't worry about it if you're a Bengals fan because, for instance, the year that you guys went to the Super Bowl in 2021, nobody thought you guys could go. But Joe Burrow proved that he can overcome more than just our doubts. But one of the worst offensive lines in the league and still take you to the Super Bowl. I'm not worried about the Bengals, and you shouldn't either. At number 10. Wow, really? This is surprising. This is surprising for me. At number 10, we have the Seattle Seahawks. And Seattle didn't really jump to my mind. JSN's great. DK Metcalf. I mean, JSN's supposed to be great. He's supposed to be great. And like we said earlier, we're not normally wrong about these things. These wide receivers drafted in the top 10. And he was drafted, let's see, 2020. He was drafted in 2022, I believe, because it was part of the Broncos. So they got Charles Cross, offensive tackle. Was he drafted in 2021? Wow, time flies, man. The NFL blows by you so quick. So, okay, JSN was drafted. Wait, no, he wasn't. No, he was drafted in 2023? Oh, yeah, 2023. Okay. JSN, yeah, here he is. 20th. Okay, so not necessarily a top 10 wide receiver, but definitely the guy of his draft, right? He was the best wide receiver in his draft. What's crazy is that Quentin Johnson was drafted just one pick after him at 21. And then you look at Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison, and you go, well, what's the difference between? Well, let's look at the two guys that we think are worse. One guy, Quentin Johnson, which there was plenty of information on film to tell you that he was a prospect. He was not ready. He was not pro ready. He needed to learn how to use his body and stop playing so passive for a guy that's 6'4", right? The thinking was if he can grow into that, if then the upside is there. And then JSN. But you had a revolving door at quarterback for the Chargers because Herbert was out almost all year. And then you had Geno Smith, who just wasn't himself. And then you go, well, Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers worked out. Lamar Jackson, Kirk Cousins. So I think it does, like, it's your fate as a wide receiver. You get drafted to a team that doesn't have a good quarterback, it can really screw up your career. And that's why it's so impressive when receivers like DJ Moore have consistent production, or Mike Evans has consistent production for 10 years, or Terry McLaurin has consistent production. It's almost more impressive when a wide receiver finds a way to do that no matter who's throwing the football to him. And so far, JSN and Quentin Johnson haven't put themselves in that situation. We did see flashes from JSN. It's not like he's on the bust alert or anything like, oh, this guy didn't work out. Nowhere near that type of a conversation. So yeah, I'll still consider JSN a legitimate threat on the team, just like I gave Jerry Jeudy 3-4 years of, grace. So they got DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett's still there. Tyler Lockett's been there for a long time, right? I always forget because there was another receiver that retired for the Seahawks. Hold on, what was his name? He retired and he tweeted something to Russell Wilson like, "Oh, what was his name?" I think he even caught a Hail Mary. Anyway, Tyler Lockett's still there. That just blows my mind. The tight end position's been lacking in Seattle. They do still have Noah Fant, who is a former first-round pick from the Broncos. He was part of the Russell Wilson trade, so they got another first round somehow. And then Bill said, I remember Grossi wanted JSN so bad. He did. And it's always so funny when you go back and you revisit those moments, because it's like, okay, so the Packers draft, JSN, and they don't draft Lucas Van Ness. But you look at Lucas Van Ness's production. We just talked about this from week 10 to the end of the year, and he showed that he's going to emerge on the scene as he could be a defensive player of the year. That's the kind of thing that they're saying about this guy. So that might age like sour milk. If JSN and Lucas Van Ness stay on their current trajectory, 2 years from now, that is going to be pure comedy. And I guarantee you, Tom Grossi hopes it happens, because that means Lucas Van Ness panned out. But yeah, it's such a fan thing. I'm the same way. You always want your team to go after the fun, easy decision, right? It's like wide receiver. How could you be wrong about this? This guy's the best in the class. We need a receiver. Let's get him a star. And then your team drafts Luke Van Ness, and you're like, what? Why? But yeah, I wouldn't have Patrick Surtain on my team if I was drafting, because I wanted Justin Fields, right? It's like so yeah, Fans don't really know what's best. We think we do. Sometimes we're right, and sometimes they're wrong. And sometimes they're wrong, and sometimes we're right. I think we're all just trying our best. All right, at number 11. And this is interesting. This is interesting because now we're getting into real debatable material here. When you're towards the top, you can make a real argument. You can make a real argument for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But what do you think about Tampa Bay coming in at number 11? I would have thought maybe closer to 15. Above the Falcons, above the Cowboys and Packers. I mean, all right. I mean, Mike Evans is great. Don't get me wrong. Chris Godwin's, another really good player despite their ages. They're both really good. Over the past 3 seasons, it says they earned receiving grades of 82.3 and 83.9. Respectively, they both finished with receiving grades above 78 last season as well. Throw in Rachaad White, Bucky Irving, which should bring both stability in the passing game, and young receivers Trey Palmer, Jalen McMillan, and there's a good group in Tampa Bay. And that I'm guilty of forgetting of the players that were just drafted. Jalen McMillan, he one of the best receivers at Washington. I forgot that he was on the team, and Trey Palmer did kind of come to life during those playoff games. I don't know, though. 11 seems kind of high. I mean, but if they can get, value out of these guys right away, Jalen McMillan comes in, Trey Palmer continues, Baker Mayfield's in good shape. Tennessee Titans come in at number 12. And it's kind of hard to know what to expect from the Titans this year. Partially because we don't know what Will Levis is. And also because they fired their head coach and they tore it all down and they're trying to build it back up. And not everybody's going to have the Houston Texans type of success that they had last year. So it's hard to know what to expect from the Titans passing game this year, but they do have some intriguing names. Of course, DeAndre Hopkins, not at his prime, but he's still a really great player. Calvin Ridley comes in. Sometimes when you miss a lot of football, that first year back is a little rough, but that second year back, you really get into gear. I think Calvin Ridley is going to get into gear, right? He is going to look. Calvin Ridley is a wide receiver 1. I will go to the grave with this. Calvin Ridley's best football is yet to come. He is still going to show the world how good he is. You will see. You will see it. I'm sure he's more disappointed than all of us put together on the kind of year he had last year with Jacksonville. But I'm telling you, that's not who Calvin Ridley is. So DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, and then they have Treylon Burks, the guy that most Tennessee fans don't even like looking at because they traded A.J. Brown away so that they could draft his replacement in Treylon Burks. He's a wild card, but if he can actually pan out to even close to what A.J. Brown was, he can put this group over the top. And the Titans also signed that wide receiver that I was talking about that is criminally underrated, the best wide receiver 3 in the NFL. And the reason the Bengals are a little worse, the Titans, they got Tyler Boyd. So you talk about raising the floor. Bringing in Tyler Boyd, Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears earned a 74.6 receiving grade. But straight up, Will Levis is in a pretty good situation. Don't forget, like Tony Pollard, when he was really rolling in Dallas, he was good. He's coming off a down season too. So I think that you got a bunch of guys in line to bounce back. Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, Treylon Burks doesn't want to be a bust. You got some young, hungry guys, right? There's like a sneaky identity in this Titans team, aside from DeAndre Hopkins, who's still said he wanted to go somewhere where he could win a ring, and the Titans got him. And we were like, I thought he wanted to go somewhere he could win a ring. And if you add that to the equation, DeAndre Hopkins absolutely has something to prove, not as an individual accolade, but as a team. He wants his team to win a Super Bowl, and he wants to, not be made fun of for going to a team when they knew he wanted a ring. Calvin Ridley, Treylon Burks, Tyler Boyd, Tony Pollard, these are all young, hungry players that are going to go out there, and they're going to want to prove to the world that they're good. And let's be real. If it's clicking, Calvin Ridley's back to where he was. Hopkins is still Hopkins. Burks and Boyd. Will Levis, he threw 4 touchdown passes his opening game. And then we saw 4 touchdowns from that point until the end of the season. So we'll see what Will Levis we get. But Mike Vrabel's not calling the plays, right? Joe Burrow's offensive coordinator is now the head coach. The Titans could be good right away, immediately. I think it would shock a lot of people. But the more I look at them, the more I see that they are not as far away as it feels. At number 13, we have the Atlanta Falcons, which might feel a little bit low. Or high is what I mean. Drake London, he's had back-to-back seasons of 78-plus receiving grades, and tight end Kyle Pitts hasn't played poorly, as the narratives might indicate, earning receiving grades above 72 in all 3 seasons with poor quarterback play. Atlanta added Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore for some improved team speed, and the offense can also rely on Bijan Robinson and his receiving ability out of the backfield. The best is yet to come for this group. That's weird. I just said that exact phrase. Yeah, Atlanta. This might be too high. Atlanta might be top 10 when it comes to weapons. I mean, Atlanta had the weapons last year. They had them the year before, but this year they keep the same weapons, and then they bring in Darnell Mooney and Rondale Moore. Like, yeah, it's going to work out. And then I was wondering where this team was going to end up, because this team, their quarterback came out and said that he doesn't think that the team needs a wide receiver 1. Jordan Love said that the Green Bay Packers do not need a wide receiver 1. He said it can be a different guy every single game. 3 Packer wideouts, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and Dontayvion Wicks, earned a 70-plus PFF receiving grade in 2023, aided in no small part by quarterback Jordan Love's emergence. Romeo Doubs was right below that at 68.4, and Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft were both above 64. They really got a good two tight end situation there. Green Bay lost the running back receiving ability of Aaron Jones, but brought in Josh Jacobs. This is a very deep group of young pass catchers. I agree. The Packers are beating you with volume. They have 3 different guys that at some point last season, we convinced ourselves that they were the wide receiver 1 on the team. Oh, it's Christian Watkins. No, it's definitely Jaden Reed. No, it's Dontayvion Wicks. Even Romeo Doubs was like, oh, he's the clear wide receiver 2. We don't know who's 1, who's 2, who's 3. And Jordan Love saying, look, nobody knows the team as good as I do. I'm telling you, there is no 1, 2, 3. There is just whoever's open. And I love the mentality. I really do. So the Packers make it into the top half of the NFL. So, yeah, well, I guess this next team will too. Right at 16 will be midway. But here we go at number 16 or 15, excuse me. You have the Dallas Cowboys. Boo! Boo! How high do the Cowboys deserve to be on the list? Well, basically, it's just CeeDee Lamb. Let's be real. He ranked 3rd in the NFL last season with a 91.4 receiving grade. He led the league in targets. He ranked second in receiving yards. He tied for third in receiving touchdowns and tallied the most first down catches. Yeah, he's unstoppable. He is absolutely unstoppable. Brandon Cooks is coming off his lowest receiving grade, 70.1, since his rookie season. And while Jalen Tolbert could step up, it's merely a conjecture at this stage. Tight end Jake Ferguson did earn a good receiving grade last season. However, it's difficult to put too much stock into Ezekiel Elliott's return, although he can be a decent pass-catching option. Pass-catching, goal line, third and short, stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. This might be solely because CeeDee Lamb is so good. Right? It's hard to have the Cowboys too low when nobody scored more points than the Cowboys did all last season, right? I mean, the numbers tell you that the Cowboys will score 30, 40 points. How do you do that with a bottom half wide receiving group? Well, you I guess you don't, right? So the Cowboys, I feel like they end up at this point in the rankings almost by default, because any higher wouldn't be justified, any lower wouldn't be fair. So I can understand the Cowboys coming in at number 15. At number 16, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs. Oh my goodness, do I hate talking about the Chiefs. I'm just kidding. Even with Travis Kelce, the Chiefs finished last year with just an 18th ranked team receiving grade. Yeah, that was the worst offense Patrick Mahomes has ever had. They have since gone out and upgraded in the form of Hollywood Brown, McCole Hardman, and Xavier Worthy. If Rashee Rice can build on what he did last season, not what he did in the offseason, with the new names around him, this should be a better unit. Yeah, and let's be real, you're not gonna have them too low with Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback, right? So Travis Kelce, best tight end in football. Hollywood Brown, whatever. McCole Hardman, Xavier Worthy, we'll see. Honestly, Mahomes is the reason that they are at 16. But yeah, I mean, there is potential, right? Xavier Worthy, fastest receiver ever. I was at the combine when he did it. And people were like, oh my God, could you imagine if the Chiefs get that guy? Well, they did. And we'll see what it looks like. At 17, we got the Raiders. The Raiders coming in. LOL. If Rashee isn't in prison. So true. Excuse me. Sorry, I need a tissue. All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to laugh and make you laugh. That it was funny. It was funny. All right, so the Raiders at 16 or 17. The question with the Raiders and their place on this list is how much Davante Adams can carry the group. Because beyond him, they don't have anything. Let's just call a spade a spade. Davante Adams, one of the best receivers in football. Quarterback play, not ideal. Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, whatever. I mean, even Adams last year struggled to produce. He was not his normal self last year, and it was evident, and that's why we're already like, is he top 5? Just 1 year removed, right? He was an undisputed top 3 receiver the year before. But he did struggle last year. He earned an 81% receiving grade. The Raiders, they drafted tight ends Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers over the past 2 seasons, but their potential impact in 2024 is unknown. Jacoby Myers was solid for the Raiders last year, but he will have to be even better in 2024 to open things up. Okay. Yeah. Honestly, the Raiders could be a little bit lower. They could be a little bit lower. KC said Rashid will probably play the season, I'm hearing. Are you hearing that at his hearing? I think the receivers will prove. They'll prove that they're good. Fair enough. KC, what a homer, right? Just kidding. All right, the Cleveland Browns. This spot is interesting for Cleveland because Deshaun Watson ideally gets back to his normal self, and the defense stays really good. Which you're like, wait, Kyle, we're talking about wide receivers. Why are you talking about defense? Well, a good defense brings the offense back on the field, and an offense that is always on the field has more opportunities, and with more opportunities comes more touchdowns. So this spot could be too low for the Browns. They have Amari Cooper, who had an 80.1 PFF receiving grade last year. He's one of the best route runner, coach on the field. Amazing. Then David Njoku, who I said is going to break out this year. I think Njoku is going to have his best season ever this year. Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman have yet to make their mark in Cleveland, and now Nick Chubb's availability and overall status is unknown after his season-ending injury. But Jerry Jeudy, who Cleveland acquired and then traded, acquired through trade and then paid immediately, hasn't lived up to his Alabama hype. But if Cleveland can get a different version, a more focused, a higher paid Jerry Jeudy, all of a sudden there's something to work with here. Jerry Jeudy is a great route runner. He is going to get open. It's what he does after. Can he catch the ball? Look, there was a lot of really poor quarterback play in Denver the last 2 years under Russell Wilson, and I hate to say it, but it's true. And if Deshaun Watson gets back to where he was, don't be shocked if Jerry Jeudy looks better than he did in Denver. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, there's also that chance that he's just a bust. So we'll hope for that. Just kidding. All right, at 19, we have the New York Jets. The New York Jets finally coming in at 19. Garrett Wilson, he's the star receiver on the team. A fully healthy season from Aaron Rodgers should be expected. That's going to get Garrett Wilson probably his best season we've ever seen. Breece Hall is a really good receiver, but outside of him, a lot of unknowns. Mike Williams, he's a flashy signing, but he's recovering from a torn ACL, and I really do believe that there is a better chance statistically that Mike Williams at this point in his career does not have a full healthy season. I'm sorry. I'm rooting for him. I hope that he does have a full healthy season. But just to be clear, Mike Williams hasn't done that in a while. And it doesn't get easier the older you get. So, yeah, Mike Williams, when he's on the field, he'll be great. And we'll see how often that is. Coming in at number 20, we have the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders coming in at 20. I would have maybe thought I think they could be higher depending on how you feel about Luke McCaffrey. So inexperience and new faces keep the Commanders from being ranked higher according to Trevor. But they appear to be building a strong offense. I agree. Terry McLaurin, bona fide stud. Jahan Dotson he said he could be a solid wide receiver 3. Let me tell you, Jahan Dotson can be a solid wide receiver 2. And Luke McCaffrey is a unique big slot receiver. You add Zach Ertz and Ben Sinnott from the tight end room, and now Austin Eckler out of the backfield, and my favorite quarterback in Jaden Daniels. I don't know, man. The offseason, it's so funny because I don't just drink my team's Kool-Aid. I drank every team's Kool-Aid. It's so funny. It's like I never have a bad vibe about a team. It's so rare. I do with the Vikings this year. But it's like there's so many teams that are just in this group of unimpressive teams from last year that I'm really expecting to be a lot better. You know, the Rams, the Commanders, the Cardinals. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Do you guys do that too? I think that the Commanders, like Jaden Daniels, if he's the real deal, like this is going to be a good team. He's going to play for potentially the playoffs. Like that's the thinking. You don't sign Austin Eckler and Zach Ertz. You don't bring in these veterans if you're not thinking, hey, we could at least compete. A lot of young talent, a lot of young players, and a lot of veterans too to guide these young guys. Don't forget, Austin Eckler out of the backfield, that's not even probably the best running back on the team. You can make a real argument that who's the you're like, you don't even know his name? Oh, give me a break. It's the off season. Okay, the Washington Commanders depth chart, running back, Christian Rodriguez. No, Brian Robinson Jr. Yeah, Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. Just don't forget that. That's all I'm saying. That's not like oh yeah, remember they have Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. That is one of the best two running backs on a team. That's right up there with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Not quite, but it's in the ballpark. And then I was just saying the Arizona Cardinals, another team that I feel good about that I normally wouldn't. They come in at number 21, the Arizona Cardinals. And Casey said probably play like the deep threat ones of the past. Hi, Bill. At least balance the short, mid, and deep passing games. Pay attention now, Bill. Oops, that's the other New York team. LOL. All right. So the Arizona Cardinals, my other team that I was saying I feel good about. They draft Marvin Harrison Jr. as their wide receiver 1. They're filling a major need and elevating the outlook of the rest of the group. So they got Trey McBride, who led the team last year with an 80.5 receiving grade. Any uptick in production from wide receiver Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson and running back James Conner would make this a fairly strong group. I don't know. It seems like you're asking for a lot. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Kyler Murray is gonna be good, right? But Trey McBride, Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson, come on. If anything, James Conner shouldn't be what they're focusing on in this article. What they should be focusing on is Trey Benson, right? They got the wrong Trey in the article. Trey McBride? Come on. Let's put some respect on Trey Benson's name. That's the best running back in this year's draft class. The Cardinals came away with the best wide receiver and the best running back. Who does that? I thought the Eagles were the only team allowed to do that. Oh, yeah. It was the Eagles coordinator that did it. So I think the Cardinals are really solid, but I don't think that they're highlighting some of the most important parts. At number 22, we have the Indianapolis Colts. the Indianapolis Colts coming in at 22. Jinja, shout out to Jinja. I'm sure he's really happy about that one. Look, all of a sudden, the Colts have a pretty impressive wide receiver room. Michael Pittman Jr. returns to take on the X role, from which he earned receiving grades above 70 in each of the past 2 seasons. Rookie Adonai Mitchell could play a big part as a vertical stretching flanker on the outside with Josh Downs, who earned a 71.0 receiving grade in 2023 as the main slot player. I saw a video the other day. I'm sorry, I just thought of this. It was a post and it said Dan Campbell really was born to coach football. And it was him when they were featured on Hard Knocks. And it's him on the sideline packing his can. And he throws in like, I don't know, half of a can. And the guy wrote the article. He said, I'm really worried about Dan Campbell. He's like, between his ungodly amount of nicotine consumption, the word in the street is that Dan Campbell orders 2 venti size coffees from Starbucks in the morning, each with 4 shots of espresso in them. And they're like, between the caffeine and the nicotine, and I was always wondering why he was red. And it was so funny because I never realized it's just from that. Like, he's so red, his blood pressure is so high. And you got to think, somebody drinking that much coffee, he's got to be boozing. Like, how do you come down from that when you're that high strung? I mean, maybe not, but he looks like he hits the bottle at night. But Dan Campbell, no doubt, one of the funnest personalities to watch him. In all seriousness, I hope he stays healthy and coaching for a long time because I love him to death. All right, so the Colts, look, a lot of upside there with Anthony Richardson coming back, being healthy. I think this is an appropriate spot. I might have them a little bit lower on my list. I would have maybe the team coming in at 23 a little bit higher. And that's the Baltimore Ravens. Tight end Mark Andrews had a major injury last year, and that lowered the ceiling for the Ravens receiving group. But Andrew comes in at number 3 in PFF's tight end rankings ahead of the 2024 season. And that's a pretty good spot to be considering an injury, because older guys later in their career, a lot of times, man, they deal with an injury like that and they drop way down. Look at Devontae Adams and the drop he had, or T. Higgins. But no, PFF ranked him as the 3rd best tight end in the NFL. So nobody's fooled by his injury last year. People are expecting top tier production out of Mark Andrews. But Zay Flowers to me is who we should be talking about. He earned a 75.6 PFF grade as a rookie. He's going to continue to be a big player, and he's going to really flourish as that number 1. The Ravens are going to need more from Rashad Bateman, but I think with Zay Flowers in the production they're going to get out of him, I think Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar are going to ascend in this offense. I think the Ravens definitely, if I would rather take the field with the Ravens receiving group than the Indianapolis Colts. Just me personally. Coming in at number 24, now we're getting to the teams that, let's face it, you don't feel good about your receiving group. Supposedly. I can tell you right now that I have a huge problem with my team. My team should have been listed already, and I'm going to crush them when we get there. The New Orleans Saints. Chris Olave is the top receiver in New Orleans right now. He's earned receiving grades above 80 in each of his first 2 seasons. He's paired up with Rashid Shaheed, who finished 2023 with 16 explosive catches of 15 yards or more. It's like, where'd you pull that stat out from? Running back Alvin Kamara remains a steady presence as a receiver. We'll see. He's getting up there in age, and he didn't have a great season last year. He managed 75 catches and a 78.4 PFF receiving grade last season. Like, this resume is dog shit. I'm looking at this resume right now, and I'm like, oh, cool. Chris Olave should ask to be traded. That's all I get from this. I don't know. Am I wrong? Am I missing something? I don't know how there's teams that I just don't understand. We'll get to it. Coming in at number 25, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. For instance, the Jaguars should be number 24. I think that's fair. The Jaguars, yeah, they lose Calvin Ridley, who you guys know I'm a fan of, but they signed Gabe Davis, which is likely a net negative. But when I look at it, I say maybe not, because there are different points in their career. Calvin Ridley and Trevor Lawrence, for whatever reason, just didn't click. If they would have had great chemistry and we would have gotten the Calvin Ridley that we thought we were going to get, I would say it's a net negative. But because they didn't really have that connection, I think it's totally in the realm of possibilities that Trevor Lawrence and Gabe Davis swapping out for Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley is a net positive. Okay? Like, we've seen Gabe Davis and Josh Allen for the last 4 years, and there's just no reason to think that a guy like Trevor Lawrence can't get a good chemistry going with Gabe Davis. So, yeah, I kind of disagree with the writer here. They also drafted rookie receiver Brian Thomas Jr. He could really raise the ceiling of this group, but asking him to be the team's top receiver in year number 1 is a tall order. Tight end Evan Ingram led the team. And yeah, since we're talking about tight ends, I'm going to throw in Evan Ingram for sure, because Evan Ingram led the team in receiving grade last year. It was only a 73.2 grade, but keep in mind, Trevor Lawrence played hurt for it felt like a large portion of the season. Down the stretch, he was really a shell of himself, and so was Jacksonville in its entirety. Like, last season, I'm not going to say, like, oh, just throw it away, it means nothing. No, like, I'll keep perspective of it, but I expect Jacksonville to have a lot of better numbers this year, and not just at quarterback, not just with the wins, but all around in every category. So, yeah, the Jags didn't have that connection last year, and I think they get it fixed, or Doug Peterson gets fired. Bill said Olave is going to end up with Radler throwing him the ball before the end of the year, LOL. And you know what? I think that is going to happen, right? I'm not predicting it to happen. You know, you just said it was going to happen. No, I'm not predicting it. I'm telling you it's going to happen, because Bill has spoke this into existence. And you got to think too, Spencer Radler, he was drafted to sit behind Derek Carr, but if Derek Carr goes out there and he's just not doing well, this is the thing. The GM, Mickey Loomis, and their head coach, Dennis Allen, right? We looked at Dennis Allen's record and we said, how is this guy not fired yet? The NFL is very like, oh, you suck, fired. But Dennis Allen took over when Sean Payton left, and he hasn't done anything to kind of justify his position as head coach of the New Orleans Saints, but yet he is safe, it feels like. So the Saints organizationally, which I have to live, 30 years to even kind of know this stuff, because my whole life Sean Payton was the head coach, but finally it's been enough time where I can say this confidently. The Saints are like the Raiders in the way that they stick with their coaches, right? You could say that's admirable or whatever, however you feel about it, stupid. But I think the Saints are that type of a team. Now, the seat is definitely getting hot for Dennis Allen. I'll say that. But I still think it's fair to ask yourself, if Derek Carr is playing at a subpar level, right? If the Saints are at week 12, they're 6-6 or 5-7. Would they put in Spencer Rattler, or would that spirit of complacency just be enough where they keep riding with Derek Carr? Because I could see a scenario where the Saints finish the season 8-9, or 8-9, and Spencer Rattler never saw the field. If there was a team that would do it, it would be the Saints. So, like, if you're in New York, in a big sports market, there's a lot of external pressure to make a change and stuff like that. I feel like the Saints are going to win one and lose two and win one and lose two, and Derek Carr is going to have a 300-yard game here and there, and next thing you know, you're going to blink and it's going to be December, and Derek Carr hasn't done anything that has warranted a quarterback change. But I know Bill is a big proponent, big fan of the Spencer Rattler train, and he's hoping that he gets on the field at some point. And I do too. It's always fun when a rookie quarterback jumps on the field and you just don't know what to expect. But number 26. Oh, this one hurts. This stings. Bill, we are getting really low on the list. What the hell? I think there's two teams that we both want to see. And it's definitely not this team. Russell Wilson's new team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. George Pickens came in at number 30 on PFF's preseason wide receiver list, and he leads the pack in Pittsburgh with Deontay Johnson no longer there. Rookie receiver Roman Wilson should get a good amount of playing time this year too. Tight end Pat Freiermuth is coming off a 68.8 receiving grade, and running back Jaylen Warren posted a 72.9 mark in 2023. It's a decent group with a lower ceiling after Johnson's departure. Yeah, I have no idea how the Steelers are ranked higher than the Broncos, right? Or the Giants, right? Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, and Malik Neighbors. How exactly are you here? You lost Deontay Johnson. Your only receiver is George Pickens, who you've had for the last multiple years, and your offense has been subpar, to say the least. Predictable, terrible. So you got George Pickens. You don't have Deontay Johnson. You got a rookie receiver in Roman Wilson who's going to get a good amount of playing time. That doesn't mean he's going to be good. That just means he's going to get a good amount of playing time. And don't get me wrong, Roman Wilson's not supposed to be a bust. I don't think. But this isn't a grand slam pick, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know what I'm missing. How in the world is Roman Wilson? I mean, Roman Wilson is a third-round draft pick. He was picked in the third round, 20th overall, or 20th pick in the third round, 84 overall. I'm not saying you can't get a good receiver in the third round. Obviously, Nico Collins and Tank Dell, I think, were drafted third and fourth round. But you're basically saying all we got is George Pickens and a third-round wide receiver, and we're going to put them above teams like the Bills and the Giants. I don't know what they're smoking. But I definitely don't agree with the Pittsburgh Steelers being at 26 above teams like the ones I mentioned. Coming in at number 27, we have the Buffalo Bills. And Bill said, we're going to be last, Kyle, or close to it. PFF hates the Giants. I know that much. Well, apparently they hate the Broncos too. This sucks. All right, the Bills. Okay, they lose Stephon Diggs and they lose Gabe Davis. Being at 27 is a little concerning if you're a Bills fan. Of course, you feel good about Josh Allen, but at the end of the day, it does feel a little bit like you're wasting talents when you have a quarterback as good as Josh Allen and your receiving group is all the way down here with teams like the Panthers, Giants, and Broncos. So they got to make a move. I don't know what they're going to do. They got to, I know they're putting a lot of eggs in one basket. And Keon Coleman is those eggs. Okay, they drafted Keon Coleman. They have Curtis Samuel and Shakur, but that's it. Like, there's no one else higher on this list. Like, I give you those names, and you're like, okay, all right, who else? And it's like, no, that we're done. It's like Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel. I actually like those wide receivers. I really do. But where's your number one? And who's your number two? It sounds like you have 3 threes with hoping Keon Coleman can be a 2. And you're just not going out with a 1. Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid are great options. So I would expect that the Buffalo Bills are going to be running a lot of tight end sets, having the tight ends heavily involved in the Bills passing game this year. James Cook didn't grade well as a receiver last year, even though he had a breakout season. He had a 54.3 receiving grade. But he does have good availability in that area, so I don't want to put too much attention on the receiving grade. It's just worth noting. So, yeah, I mean, the Bills have a problem, and they didn't really address it. They drafted Keon Coleman, and worse than that, they traded their pick to the Kansas City Chiefs so that they could draft Xavier Worthy, who will ultimately end up scoring the touchdown in the divisional round that beats the Bills, because that's just the way history has to go down, right? Coming in at number 28. And KC said, the Bills really did a purge this year. Maybe they were aging too much. Yeah, and sometimes it's just hard to keep a team together. You know, that's why you really got to take advantage when you're in one of those windows. And the Bills, I'd say 2020, 2021 was their best chance. That shootout with the Chiefs, that to me looked like a team that would have won the Super Bowl had Mahomes not won in overtime. The Bills would have won the Super Bowl that year, I think. Coming in at number 28, we have the one, the only, the biggest fan of the show, the New York Giants. No, the New York Giants. The New York Giants room will go as Malik Neighbors goes. If he's a star, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Jalen Hyatt could all look like great complementary pieces. After Darren Waller's retirement, he's going to pursue his rap career, which, guys, I don't know if you heard the song yet. Go look at the song you released. It's so out-of-tuned. It's awful. I wish he was good. I love music, specifically rap music. It was terrible. I'm always looking for new material, but it's not going to be Darren Waller where I'm getting it. Danielle Bellinger and Theo Johnson are the main options at tight end. They had an option where they could have drafted Cade Stover, but they ended up drafting Theo Johnson. And I believe that was the first pick in the 4th round. No. The first pick in the 4th round was Jatavion Sanders. They picked the 7th pick in the 4th round, and they got Theo Johnson. And Eric All was on the board. They could have drafted Eric All. But look, they saw something that they liked in Theo Johnson. And I think Cade Stover ended up getting drafted to the Houston Texans. Unbelievable. I was just making my case on the Texans being the best wide receiver group in the NFL, and I completely forgot to mention Cade Stover is also on that team. Unbelievable. But yeah, the Giants, they had different tight ends that they could have drafted, and they went with the 6'6", 259-pound wide or tight end whose statistical production didn't match his talent at Penn State, but more and more executives towards the draft got closer, saw that he had the traits to be productive in the NFL. He put on a show at the combine. He ran the second fastest 40-yard dash out of the tight ends. He had a 4.5. He flashes the ability to make plays down the seam, and he averaged 16 yards per catch in 2022. That's a good chunk of yards. He's a big target. He's got long arms, big hands. He can snatch the ball out of the air, but he has the frame to cover up defenders in space too, and he's competitive as a blocker. So I bring this up because Theo Johnson comes across as one of a pure tight end, right? We got an all-around guy that still needs to learn, still needs to grow, but we think that this could be somebody that is a pure tight end. It's a little different than when the Broncos drafted Noah Fant in the first round, who is basically just a glorified wide receiver that had yet to develop any run blocking skills, nor did he have the instincts to do that. Theo Johnson comes across as this guy that they feel like, oh, he can do anything we need him to. But when we're judging a wide receiver group, we have to take that into consideration. So Theo Johnson and Danielle Bellinger are the main options at tight end. But let's not act like Darren Waller's departure is going to leave this void on the team. His arrival was never noticed. It was noticed in the preseason. So, yeah, I mean, Theo Johnson being an upgrade over Darren Waller, definitely a possibility to be nice. Subbing out the pass catching abilities of Saquon Barkley for Devin Singletary is definitely, you could say it's a downgrade. I know Bill said earlier that there was 3 interceptions off tip balls, but I would still be hard pressed to say that that's not a downgrade. Singletary hasn't brought much in the receiving game throughout his career. That's not really what his thing is. So yeah, the Giants are down here. But I'm going to end this with a positive note. Okay. Malik Neighbors, LSU product. I mean, Odell Beckham, Justin Jefferson. I'm just going through in my head other LSU wide receivers. Jamar Chase, there's so many. And yeah, I think Malik Neighbors becomes he already is. I think what is going to be revealed is that Malik Neighbors is just like those other guys. He's going to be great. Not good. He's going to be great. Okay. And if he is great, Darius Slayton is going to have an opportunity to see, I guess, more favorable matches, right? No double coverages. That's going to be all that attention, all going to Malik Neighbors. And then Jalen Hyatt, let's not forget, Jalen Hyatt is one of those, I mean, he's a toy that the Giants have yet to fully unlock. His skill is there. He reminds me a lot of KJ Hamler out of Penn State. Really, really fast. Really, really good. Almost too fast for the quarterback. And I think if just those 3 pieces, starting with Malik Neighbors, like I said, as the Giants receiver room goes, so will Malik Neighbors. This Giants, I mean, they're at 28 right now. I think if Malik Neighbors is a bona fide star in the league, you're going to see Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt take a step up, and the Giants are going to be more towards 15 next offseason, even if nothing changes in the wide receiver room between now and the start of 2025. So I would feel optimistic about this group because you still have room to jump the boards without making any changes. What sucks is when you're in this situation down here and you have a lot of changes that need to be made for you to climb the ranks. No, you guys just need Malik Neighbors to go out and be the guy that he was drafted to be, and the rest will take care of itself. And yeah, it's a good thing you guys drafted Jalen Hyatt last year too, because I think that's going to really benefit. These aren't old players. These are young players that haven't been unlocked yet. Coming in at 29. This is crazy. I can't believe this. How in the world are the Broncos not being listed yet? This is embarrassing. This is just humiliating. The Carolina Panthers are ranked higher than the Broncos. Unbelievable. Bill said Hyatt is too fast for the QB. He was consistently underthrown last year. You're 100% right. And Bill said, yeah, LSU is a wide receiver factory. Theo Johnson is a good high point ball catcher. Belly will also be good if he isn't making up for Evan Neal sucking and having to block. Oh, I didn't know that they call Bellinger Belly. I like that. All right. The freaking Panthers, they're ranked higher than the Broncos. I just can't get over that. Really disappointed. The Panthers receiving room improved this offseason with the team acquiring Deontay Johnson and drafting Xavier Legette. However, it is still a group that has a lot to prove. Jonathan Mingo, Terrace Marshall, Tony Tremble, and Jatavion Sanders, the first pick in the 4th round, could step up, but we have to see it to move the Panthers up these rankings as they rank 30th in team receiving grade in 2023. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I love Xavier Legette. I love him. I drafted him in my mock draft. I know Bill is a huge fan. I think he's going to be awesome. But as Bryce Young goes, so do the Panthers. And ultimately, I don't have faith that Bryce Young's going to work out. So I don't know if this is, I think this is an appropriate spot, maybe a little lower. Here we go. Number 30. Number 30. In the sheer disrespect. I mean, I can't even say it. That's how upsetting this is. The Broncos come in at number 30. Number 30. Jerry Jeudy is no longer a Bronco. Okay, let's start there. Jerry Jeudy is no longer a Bronco. Well, for the last 4 years, the whole entire NFL has been saying nothing but Jerry Jeudy is a bust. And now that we don't have him, it's considered a bad thing. Okay, so it's Courtland Sutton's room to command. Okay, first off, Courtland Sutton's room to command this entire time. Courtland Sutton was here long before Jerry Jeudy got here. Does the writer actually think Jerry Jeudy, his departure is now going to make Courtland Sutton stand up into this leadership role? No, he's always been that guy. He's been our leader this whole time. The team brought in Josh Reynolds. I like the addition of Josh Reynolds. Okay. You got a wide receiver 3. He's not a wide receiver 2. He's a wide receiver 3. But you bring in Josh Reynolds as another weapon. We saw a lot of good football also from Lil Jordan Humphrey. A lot of good football from Lil Jordan Humphrey. So much so that he is still on the team after a 1-year deal. Because he was, honestly, at times, he was one of our best wide receivers. And it was like, why is this guy one of our best? What about the guy we drafted? It doesn't always work out like that. So, yeah, we lose the guy that everybody knows his name. But we're going to get better production from Josh Reynolds. We draft Bo Nix in Denver in the 4th round, jumps up the board because Troy Franklin was somehow still available. Troy Franklin is Bo Nix's number 1 target in Oregon. There's going to be chemistry right there. Okay? So, I think Troy Franklin ends up as wide receiver 2, Josh Reynolds wide receiver 3, Courtland Sutton's wide receiver 1, and we haven't even discussed yet that Denver drafted a wide receiver last year that made the Pro Bowl as a rookie in Marvin Mims, who's a really great deep threat option. He's the best punt returner in football last year. And Sean Payton has said countless times that we underutilize Marvin Mims. Like, we should have used him more. Jerry Jeudy's gone. That's fine. Courtland Sutton, Josh Reynolds, Troy Franklin, and Marvin Mims Jr. This is a good receiving core. This is not like, there are those teams like the Buffalo Bills where I'm like, they still need to address that. This is not a receiving group that I feel that the Broncos need to figure out. Okay, we can't take the field week 1 with this group. No, we can, and we should feel good about it. Courtland Sutton's got this financial thing going on. I think they're going to get that situated before week 1. And Troy Franklin, yeah, he's going to have his bumps in the road. He's going to be a rookie, and he's going to do rookie things. And maybe at times we wish that we had one more bona fide star. But the type of offense that Sean's going to be running, he's going to be getting the ball out of Bo Nix's hands in 2 to 3 seconds. This is going to be quick decisions, fast processing. And when you run that type of offense, you don't need a receiver to be, this guy runs great route. No, it's going to be a very fast bubble screen, slants. I'm not saying that the receiver position doesn't matter, but when you run that kind of offense, you can get like pretty good production out of guys that you don't know. Think of Tom Brady and all the names that he made household names just running these type of routes. The Wes Walkers, the Danny Amendolas, what's his name? I'm blanking on his name right now. The other white guy that has his own podcast. Games with Names. That's what his podcast is called. Not Danny Amendola. You guys know who I'm talking about. And then Bill said, any free agent wide receivers out there to bolster your forces? I thought Sutton was really good, though. Yeah. I just saw a video the other day that was like the top 50 catches of 2023. And Courtland Sutton was in it like 7 times. Courtland Sutton is really, really good. He made so many just jaw-dropping plays last season. He had the toe touch against the Bills. He had the one-handed pass interference catch against the Chargers. He had the game-winning touchdown against the Vikings. He had the one on the sideline. Who was that? That was late in the year where Russ rolled out. I can still see the play, and then threw it, and somehow Sutton got that foot down on the sideline. I mean, there was just so many plays. Arguably, Sutton turned in his best performance. Like, that was I understand why his agent wants him to squeeze some more juice out of this lemon. It's time for him to get a little more money, because that was the type of season where you prove how valuable he is. So yeah, Courtland Sutton, he's amazing. He is amazing. So let me see really quick who the top available wide receiver free agents. You know what? There's a guy here. There's a guy here that I think would be a good fit. Okay, so number 1, let's see. This was, hold on. No, this is, I need something current. Okay, here we go. Spottrack.com. All positions, no, just wide receiver. All right. So, man, all of these guys are signed. Available. Okay, here's what's available. Okay. I think there's one I like. It makes sense. But no, I don't like it. But Michael Thomas is still a free agent. He's 31 years old. 31.2 years old. He has 7 seasons in the NFL, but he has been in a Sean Payton offense before. That has happened. So I think Michael Thomas would be a good one. Hunter Renfrow, 28 years old, really solid with the Raiders. Russell Gage, Tampa is available. Randall Cobb, no. Jakeem Grant, no. Jamal Agnew, no. Joe Reed, he was with the Chiefs, I believe. No, he was with the Bears. Jalen Moore, Byron Pringle. I like Byron Pringle. I think I just like his name, but Martavius Bryant. Honestly, Hunter Renfrow, Russell Gage, or Michael Thomas. But with Michael Thomas comes an absurd amount of money. And you look at their contracts. I mean, Hunter Renfrow, his previous yearly salary was $16 million. No one wants to pay him $16 million. Russell Gage and Michael Thomas were both making $10 million. And then the guys under that, Jamal Agnew, Jakeem Grant, now we're at $4 million, $3 million, and then less than $1 million or $1 million. So these guys will get picked up. But these expensive ones at the top, Russell Gage, Hunter Renfrow, Michael Thomas, I think Denver would like them, but not for $16 or $10 million a year. But great question. Great question. All right, so we only got 2 more spots to go. At number 31, I'm so happy that this team's at 31 and not at 30, and the Broncos at 31. The Los Angeles Chargers, who basically tore it all down just to build it back up. I think they'll be fine. The Chargers receiving core doesn't look good this year. They lost Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Gerald Everett, and Austin Eckler. It seems like their whole team, right? And first rounder Quentin Johnson didn't look the part in 2023. He was never going to look the part. He was a project. The Chargers still have Johnson and Josh Palmer, and they did sign DJ Chark and draft Ladd McConkey and Brendan Rice. Look, they just brought in fresh feet, fresh legs. All right, Josh Palmer, DJ Chark. They're just not household names, but you still know these guys. Ladd McConkey, you think that he's going to be good, probably wide receiver 2 on the team. I would assume. Honestly, wide receiver 1 upside. And then Jerry Rice, his son. I mean, it's kind of like the Packers in a way where it's like someone has to step up big from the group and you don't know who it's going to be. Now, I really think the one thing that the Packers and Chargers have in common is that they have high level quarterback play from the QB position. So I think that's kind of going to save their ass, just like how these names we look at right now, Josh Palmer, DJ Chark, Ladd McConkey, they don't really mean anything. Well, Justin Herbert hasn't played with them for an entire year in a Justin Herbert-led offense. Okay, the way we feel about the Packers, the reason they're at 15 is because of what we saw late last season, also early in the year this year in the playoffs. Now we know. The Chargers haven't had that opportunity to show us anything yet. So, yeah, the Chargers find themselves down here at 31, but it's only because football hasn't started yet. And then at number 32, and the worst wide receiving group in the entire National Football League, NFC and AFC, goes to, drum roll, please, the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots. And before I get into that, Bill said you could trade with us for Hodgins. We underused him, but he's the engine that saved 2022 for us. Honestly, I would be down for somebody like that. The one cool thing about being in a full-on rebuild and making poor financial decisions like the Broncos did is bargain shopping, right? Like when you have a ton of money and you bring in Devontae Adams, it's like there's no mystery, all right? But when you walk into Goodwill and you find something that's really sweet, something that's like a Denver Broncos shirt that somebody's grandpa, had in their attic and their kids just dropped it off, right? You're like, man, if I was super wealthy, would I even go to Goodwill? Would I even be here to find something so cool? And then that feeling when you hand somebody a $1, $2 bill and you have this t-shirt that is almost, invaluable. That feeling stays with you. You're just so happy. Every time you wear the shirt, you're like, I got this shirt at $2. I feel the same way with players. Like you said, Hodgins, a guy that played a significant role for you guys in 2022. But you wouldn't really know that unless you were a big Giants fan. Somebody like that gets kicked to the curb, right? If you have a bunch of money, maybe that's not the guy that you go after. But then as a fan, you're like, who is this guy? Who's Isaiah Hodgins? And then you look into it, you find the film, and then you get excited because like, hey, this guy could really do for us what he did for them. So, I mean, I didn't know who Lil Jordan Humphrey was last year. I didn't know who some of these guys were that Sean Payton was keeping on the team while he was cutting guys like Randy Gregory. But it's fun to see, like, man, it's one thing to put together a team when you have, no cap restriction, but it's another thing to try to maneuver these things when you don't have that much money. And then you still put together a team that you feel confident about. Without any money to your name, the Broncos still have a receiving group that I feel good about that could take the field. It's a lot harder to do that when you don't have anything. And you have to get more creative. And that creative part is what I'm saying as a fan is fun to watch. But also, I can't wait to have money again. Okay. The Patriots. So they fielded the 28th ranked receiving corps by PFF last year. Their highest graded pass catcher was departed tight end Pharaoh Brown. That should tell you a lot of what you need to know about the Patriots. It's also like, what the hell happened? Like, man, Tom Brady left. I get it, but come on, guys. The team's second and third highest graded receivers in 2023 were Demario Douglas and Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry's not even a wide receiver. Rookies Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. Honestly, I like both of these rookies a lot. So I said all that stuff that was kind of mean. Now I'm going to be nice. Polk and Javon Baker. I think Javon Baker, people don't know who he is right now. I think they know who he is early next year. Okay. Javon Baker's going to be good. And he's going to, like he said, he's going to get a good amount of looks early on. And then at running back, they brought in Antonio Gibson, who's a good pass catcher. And they just signed Ramondre Stevenson, who's probably going to be a 3-down back. But it's a low ceiling group for 2024. And the long-term outlook is decent. You still have Drake May. You still have 2 wide receivers that you drafted that you're hoping can be your 1 and your 2. And then you're just saying, okay, DeMarco Douglas and Pharaoh Brown's not there anymore, but Demario Douglas, he was our second highest graded receiver. We just need him to be a wide receiver 3. And Hunter Henry to just keep doing his thing at tight end. Like, I mentioned it earlier. I drink the Kool-Aid every single time. I don't know how. But if you're a Patriot fan, you're just excited to see these young guys on the field, right? Because what are they going to look like? And is Drake May going to be the starter week 1? And if so, or if not, then what is that going to mean for Jalen Polk and Javon Baker? Is it having consistent quarterback play pretty important to these young wide receivers? So it's one thing to just have a young wide receiver and a bunch of veteran or a veteran quarterback and a bunch of young wide receivers, or vice versa. But if you're going to have one of the youngest receiving core in the NFL, it's pretty important that you give him some sort of consistent quarterback play. So whoever it's going to be, ideally, that decision isn't going to be for 2 or 3 weeks. That's going to be for the season. And is Drake May too talented to keep on the bench for an entire season if, say, you've only won 2 games by week 6? Lot of questions around New England. A lot of questions to be answered. But that is 1 through 32, the 2024 NFL receiving corps ranked. The Bears and Texans are my 1A and 1B. They crack Trevor's top 5. But let me know what you guys think in the comments if you're watching this later. Let me know if you agree. Bill said, I'll bet on anything. I'll bet anything Sean Payton waits for the cut down and goes shopping then. Yeah, Sean, he knew what the 2-year plan looked like when he took the job. This is all part of the plan, unfortunately. But thank you guys for tuning in to this Friday night edition. If you guys are watching this later, please hit the like button on the video and share it. Helps me out. And if you guys have any topics that you want me to discuss on a later episode, you can always put those in the comments as well. You can follow me on Twitter at NFL with Kyle. And you can follow me also at The Only Football Podcast, which I do with Rick on Mondays and Thursdays. And then during the NFL season, it's a lot more streaming. Sundays, Thursdays, Mondays, Wednesdays, Tuesdays. It's almost every single day. So definitely tune into that. The Only Football Podcast. And as always, I hope you guys have a good night and a good weekend. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good night.